going to air it out down the field. Catch and a touchdown.
It's College Football Pick'em, presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Here's your host, Nick Kosko.
Welcome inside the College Football Pick'em right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. We are presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu each and every week. It is week 5 of our program right here on this very station. You can follow me on Twitter at NickKosko59, NickKosko 59 on Twitter. Follow our station at 1490 Sports Bet. That'll get you locked in on social media with AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. It's a great day for college football once again, as it always is. There's a lot going on, though. These lines can get affected by many things, and I'll tell you what, I'm just trying to figure out why I've been so bad the last 2 weeks. Now, granted, folks, I looked at my record last year, week to week, and I believe I have to go back and check now, but I believe I finished the season, if not at 500, I think it was around over 500 last year on my picks. Not, give or take, in around that area, maybe a game or two under or a game or two over. It was a solid season last week, and unfortunately, a guy named Rich Quinones, who roasted me on Wednesday on Back Your Play. Of course, you can catch him 4 to 6 Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We do our segment Nick's Picks on Wednesdays at 4:20. Rich was roasting me for my porous record on the season now after back-to-back 1-4 weeks. And I'm sorry to you folks out there who have been listening to me, because I'll tell you what, 2-8 in the last 2 weeks is completely unacceptable. And, again, just a little friendly shot back at him. He wants to roast me for my record, but he knows these games are hard to pick, as not making any excuses, but his record for the NFL, not doing too hot either. Forget his actual record. I don't think he revealed it quite on the air. Maybe we'll go back and forth once again next Wednesday. So the way I look at it is, this week is crazy. And I've already had to scrap one of my picks, by the way. So I mentioned to Rich that I had Cincinnati -3 at Tulsa. That's right, number 8 Cincinnati is only a 3-point favorite on the road at Tulsa. The problem is that game is postponed now due to positive COVID tests. So that game is not happening. We are scrapping that one. We will add a 5th game. I'll reveal which one later. We have the other 4 games are, as of right now, good to go. So, and I got to tell you, the line for one of my games, the Bama-Georgia game, that's moved. That could help us, and it's significant enough. And I told you this the other week. We had Auburn. I believe it was -10. It's a 10-point spread, no matter what. It moved to 7. I said, absolutely. It was -10. For some reason, I just love Auburn that 1 week. And I looked at it, and I'm like, wow, that line shifted to -7.5. Yep, there we go. They were playing Kentucky at home 3 weeks ago now. This is our second show. Auburn was -10.5. They moved to -7.5. So that was significant enough from Wednesday to Saturday that we had to take it. And sure enough, I think this Bama-Georgia line might be significant enough where we have to either modify the pick or definitely change the line here. So, again, this is what happens when you do it early in the week. This is why you don't commit to these bets early in the week. But these are the games I like. You place them the day of. You have to monitor these things. So for today, Alabama-Georgia is the big game of the weekend. Number 3 Georgia at number 2 Alabama. And pretty much, folks, this is where we're going to start here today. And then, of course, we have Nick's picks later in the show. I'll give you my 5 picks of the day. But we have to start Alabama-Georgia. And it starts right now with head coach Nick Saban. Nick Saban tested positive for COVID the other day. And unless he gets 3 consecutive negative PCR tests, this is from ESPN's Heather Dinich on the report. If he gets 3 straight negative tests, plus he is asymptomatic the entire time, then he could conceivably rejoin the team on the sideline, and it does not seem like that is going to happen as of this moment. So right now, Steve Sarkisian, the man in charge for Alabama, he is the offensive coordinator, and what is Alabama preaching this year? Offense. They certainly are not preaching defense this year, considering the way they've played over the past couple of games. Georgia, meanwhile, is the exact opposite. And Georgia right now, I can't say on paper, But if you want to just combine the units between Georgia's defense and their offense compared to Alabama's offense and defense, I mean, I still think Bama's a better team. But if you take into account how good Georgia's defense is, they're probably the best defense in the country, and their offense is now becoming something with Stetson Bennett at quarterback over the past couple of weeks. If you actually take that into account and merge it together, Georgia might be the quote-unquote more complete team despite being ranked below Alabama, and Alabama having arguably the best offense in the country right now. I mean, you look at Bama's point totals, 38, 52, 63. It's gone up each and every week. This team is just so darn good on the offensive side of the football, and that has to do with Mac Jones, the quarterback. And not only is Mac Jones playing at a Heisman caliber level right now, where I don't think anybody thought Mac Jones from the quarterback out of Alabama, considering Alabama, their quarterbacks are really, pedestrian, middle of the road quarterbacks that might get, drafted in the 5th, 6th round in the NFL, unless you're Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts of the last couple stints. Other than those two guys, I mean, when's the last time there was a really great Alabama quarterback under Nick Saban? It really hasn't been. So you look at what Mac Jones has been doing. He has been in this program for 4 or 5 years now. So you look at how he's following Tua. No one thought Mac Jones would play at this type of level for the Crimson Tide. This guy is unbelievable this year. And again, I know he has the weapons, but that doesn't make them even scarier. Mac Jones is completing almost 80% of his passes. And he's not dinking and dunking. He's averaging 13.3 yards a throw. All right, he's got 8 touchdowns and a pick. That's it. He's got 1 pick. 8 touchdowns. He's over 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards on the season. But he spreads the ball around. He's got 3 receivers, basically 3. John Mechie has 298 yards, but basically 3 receivers that are already topped over 300 yards. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, they've been in the program for a long time, and now John Mechie, the sophomore, is coming out of nowhere, and he could be the best out of all of them by the way he's playing. Mechie only has 11 catches this year, but he's averaging 27 yards a catch. He has got 2 touchdowns. Smith has 2 touchdowns. Waddle has 2. And then you look at the running back, Najee Harris. 347 yards on the year. He's averaging 6.7 yards a carry. He scored 5 touchdowns on the ground against Ole Miss last week. He's got 10 on the year. He leads the SEC. I mean, the offense is just unbelievable. And the fact that they got Dylan Moses back on the defensive side, linebacker, I mean, Bama's a darn good football team, and they could very well end up winning the national championship this year. Now, again, I say Dylan Moses is back for the defense, and now if he wasn't back, I don't know what this team would do on defense, because the defensive line is not the same as it usually is. I mean, when we think of Alabama, we think of that dominating defensive front. We think of these big boys, the Jonathan Allens of the world. Just as an example, he was the first one that popped into my head. But I mean, we know. How about Quinnen Williams? He's on the Jets now too. Allen's on Washington. But they basically rotate these guys. They're basically defensive line university. Now they seem to be wide receiver university. So the philosophies have shifted, and that's why I brought up the coaches at the start of this little monologue here, is because when you look at Bama and Georgia, Bama's hosting, but they don't have Nick Saban on the sideline. All right, they have. And he can't coach. He can coach virtually. He's not going to be able to, use Zoom and call into Steve Sarkisian's headset and say, X, Y, and Z, here's what I see. Mac's not doing this. Or on the defensive side, what's going on over here? Nick Saban cannot do anything. If he's not at the game, he cannot do anything coaching-wise. So that's why people are saying, well, maybe this really could be the time where Georgia says, we're going to beat this team. And Kirby Smart's going to get his little revenge. But here's the problem. Also, just a little side note, Nick Saban's 21-0 against his assistants, lifetime as a college football coach. Tonight's not going to count. Even whether they win or lose, it's not going to count towards Saban's record. Kirby Smart, even if he gets the win tonight, he didn't beat Saban. He's going to beat Steve Sarkisian. But Steve Sarkisian, who calls the offense anyway, if he's leading the charge, then this game is probably going to be, you would think, more of an offensive shootout. You would think. But that is up to Georgia's defense. Georgia's defense, while the offense is starting to come into its own, again, as I mentioned before, with Stetson Bennett, and we thought, after Jamie Newman, and I've said this for weeks now, after Jamie Newman opted out of the season, he was the grad transfer quarterback coming in from Wake Forest. Once he opted out, it's like, all right, what are you going to do? JT Daniels transferred in. That's great, from USC. He wasn't medically cleared at the start of the season. So they started DeJuan Mathis. Didn't look good. Stetson Bennett comes in. Didn't look good, and then leads him to a comeback victory over Arkansas to start the year. not really a comeback. They were down 7-6 and they won 37-10, but they woke up. You're like, okay, can Stetson Bennett do it again? Very next week, they beat Auburn 27-6. Stetson Bennett, solid showing again. Auburn, and then you look at Georgia's defense, only getting up 16 points through 2 games. They've scored 64. All right, now what do you do against a ranked Tennessee team? Stetson Bennett, 16-27, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, solid, safe with the football. Georgia scores 44, only give up 21. They only give up 21. Jarrett Garantano, the quarterback for Tennessee, he was okay, but threw a pick. They limited Eric Gray, the running back for Tennessee, to 25 yards. This Georgia defense is so good against the run. Gray is one of the best running backs in the SEC. Now they have a different challenge in Najee Harris tonight. But my point is, this is supposed to be an offensive game, but does Georgia actually have the advantage? I mean, can Georgia slow down Alabama enough so they can actually come out and get the win on the road? Be a minor upset. I mean, they're number 2 and number 3 respectively. I would say they would probably just flip-flop positions at this point if Georgia would win. But you look at number 4, and it's Notre Dame. Notre Dame's number 4 in the country right now, and they're playing Louisville today at 2:30. Excuse me. So these two teams are these two teams are going to remain in the top 4. It's just a matter of who has the inside track in this potential SEC game preview or SEC championship game preview. Without Nick Saban, do you miss the fire on the sidelines? Do you miss the late game heroics or the late game adjustments? Saban can't do anything from home against Georgia. Can Steve Sarkisian replicate that on the sideline? And that's why this line has shifted. All right, earlier in the week when I was on with Rich on Back Your Play, it was Alabama -6. It's now Alabama -4.5. People notice that Nick Saban is likely not going to be on that sideline, and that gives people reason to say, let's put the money on Georgia. So you see the money's going towards Georgia. And I told Rich earlier in the week, I like Bama -6 because I think it's going to end up being a shootout. It might be a little sloppy in the beginning with Georgia's defense holding strong, and then Alabama's defense, maybe just doing what it can to contain it. Believe me, folks, this is not the most high-powered offense in the world in Georgia, but they're solid enough where they can give Alabama's defense fits. But don't forget, if you look at Alabama's defense, giving up 48 points to Ole Miss last week, they gave up 24 to Texas A&M. All right, that's fine, but they only gave up 19 to Missouri. So really, it's the last game that's really glaring for Alabama's defense, where you're like, whoa, let's raise our eyebrows and ask some questions. What is going on with the Crimson Tide defense? It's really the fact they were on the road. Ole Miss is unranked, and the fact it was Lane Kiffin. I mean, I know people like to make fun of Lane Kiffin, but Lane Kiffin's a solid football coach. And Ole Miss seems like they have a little juice this year. I know they're only 1-2, but they gave Alabama a run for their money last week. So that's your cause for concern right now. I mean, Ole Miss was scoring in droves, 35, 42, 48. So the concern is just based on that last game where they couldn't stop a lick. Because Matt Corral torched them. 365 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Connor on the ground, 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Yeboah, the tight end. And he was all over the place. You couldn't stop him. So if you're Alabama, who are you stopping today? Can you contain Stetson Bennett? That's the biggest question. Can you force him into mistakes? Because Stetson Bennett is not going to kill you through the air. He'll be solid. He can give you 200 to 260 maybe through the air, touchdown or 2. But they're going to be safe. They're going to use ball control here, as Georgia does. I mean, their offense still hasn't evolved to those of how Alabama's evolved to now. It's just pass, and we're going to beat you down the field constantly. All right, Georgia has a good enough offense where you have a guy like Zamir White. He's carried the ball 54 times this year, but he's a really good running back, but he's averaging just under 4 yards a carry. He's no Najee Harris right now. So even the run offense for Georgia is not what it should be. They have guys like DeAndre Swift, or in the past, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. Receiving-wise, George Pickens, got to get him going. He's their best receiver. Only 8 catches, 87 yards this year. So Georgia's offense, while solid, it's not going to be able to keep up with Alabama today. They cannot keep up. It's up to Georgia's defense, and can Georgia's defense, arguably the best in the country, can they contain the Bama offense long enough where Georgia can steal a win late. That's pretty much how this game is going to go down. And the fact that line shifted from 6 to 4.5, almost gives me the inclination where Bama can either, they could get a backdoor cover type situation. I mean, they could be up 3 and then all of a sudden kick another field goal, go up by 6 late in the game, and force Georgia to have to drive down the field to score a touchdown to tie/win the football game, or maybe Bama's up by 3 again, and they end up scoring a touchdown to put the game on ice with up 2 scores with, let's say less than 2 minutes to go. And then you have to worry about Georgia getting the backdoor cover as well. But that's where we're at. The fact that Saban's off the field pushes the line in favor of Georgia, not in total favor, but again, that line moved down from 6 to 4.5. The Saban factor is worth 1.5. I figured it'd be more because people like to panic in certain situations, and in a situation like this where Saban might not even be on the sideline at all and has no communication with his players and his fellow coaches, I mean, I would almost be panicked as well if I were a bettor on Alabama. But the fact that was a bettor, or even a fan of Alabama, I should just leave it at that. The fact that it went to 4.5 is reason enough without Saban to say we are going to go within our picks. We're going to acknowledge the 4.5 points now later in the show, and I'll reveal whether I'm going to stick with Alabama or I'm going to go with Georgia. Because before it was a touchdown, and I think I went into this week thinking Alabama was going to win. And if you listen to me with Rich before on Wednesday, I said Alabama -6. I like that. Now you would think that means I like Alabama -4.5. But as I just mentioned, there's no Saban. Could that make me change my pick to Georgia? We'll have to find out, folks. Also, we have to change it. We have to get a new game in there. There's no Cincinnati Tulsa. Got to add a new game. And I got a decent one for it because I like the quarterback from this team, and that helped me out the other week as well. So just want to remind you that the College Football Pick'em Show is brought to you by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu, located inside the Attilas Gym in Egg Harbor Township. Make sure to go check out my buddy and head instructor, Al Bruce, who runs the school over there. He does a fantastic job. Some great guys in there each and every day during the class sessions, for MMA striking, basic jiu-jitsu, intermediate jiu-jitsu, and of course open mats and live training as well. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Of course, Saturday mornings, and then on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, it's in the evening, starting at 5:30 on Tuesday and Thursday, and of course 6:30 on Wednesdays as well. Get in there for a great workout. If you want to learn a new skill, and it's a great way to defend yourself. It's just a great skill to have. Even if you have no background in jiu-jitsu or wrestling or striking, I mean, you get it all with Al Bruce and all the guys in there. I go there every Tuesday and Wednesday when I am able to train, and I'll tell you what, it's quite the time, quite the workout, and you get a lot out of it. All right. We're gonna step aside and take a quick break. On the other side, we'll dive more into the games today. We have to give everybody some blow here today. Okay, we can't just talk about Alabama, Georgia till the cows come home. Of course, we will dive into my picks later in the show as well. So don't go anywhere. Keep it locked here. It's College Football Pick'em right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Betting college football? You've come to the right place. It's College Football Pick'em, presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Welcome back to College Football Pick'em right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu, located inside the Attilas Gym in Egg Harbor Township. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at NickKosko59, NickKosko59 on Twitter. Also follow our station, 1490, on Twitter at 1490 Sports Bet. You can find us on social media. And we'll give you great stuff. And follow my guys Rich Quinones at RichQ and Ryan Rothstein at Wise Rye, hosts of Back Your Play and The Fix, respectively, on this station during the week as well. Well, we talked about Alabama, Georgia. You think you got enough Bama, Georgia, but you're probably going to get in the SEC championship game later in the year. And I say that because my team, Florida, oh my goodness, this was my team this year. My a Final Four pick. Oh, Florida. What are you talking about bad defenses? Florida killed me last week because don't forget, folks, we had Florida -6.5 on the road at Texas A&M, and guess what? They lost by 3. down goes Florida. You almost rather see Florida lose that game than win by 3 just to really piss you off. That's just what happens. I don't get it. Florida is so good. Heisman candidate quarterback and Kyle Pitts going off. The tight end for Florida, and they lose to Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher finally gets that big win that they've been waiting for the past couple of years. Kellen Mond plays a good game at quarterback. And to top it all off, the number 10 Gators, they're not playing LSU today. And this is a reeling LSU team, and it was a chance for Florida to make a statement, come back, dominate the defending national champions, and guess what? Game postponed because of COVID tests. There you go. No Florida today. And it was postponed earlier in the week, so I really didn't get a chance to look at that line. And again, I might have taken Florida again as a bounce back game. It stinks. It really stinks. We're not going to have Florida here this afternoon against LSU. But I digress. Florida dropped to 10, so they were one of the upset losses last week. And if we're recapping last week, we had Syracuse plus 2.5 at home against Duke, and Duke won that game by a lot. So that wasn't really helpful at all. Oklahoma and Texas, we had Texas plus 2, and of course Oklahoma ends up dominating. Texas comes all the way back, and Oklahoma wins the football game by more than 2. That didn't help us out at all. We had NC State, though, plus 9.5 at Virginia. That was a winner. Miami plus 14 at Clemson last week. Yeah, it's weird because remember I told you folks last week, I have these inclinations for those big spreads, and this is why I usually stay away, because it's either that the team that is a big underdog like Miami last week is going to cover very close, or the other team is going to win by double that spread. And Clemson won 42-17, winning by 25. So at that point, they almost doubled them up anyway based on the spread. So again, I don't listen to myself. I don't know. I think I should. And I was talking to Eitan Shannon when I had him on the show last week. I said, it seemed like I was going to go towards Clemson in that way, but I stuck with Miami and I paid for it. And that's why. Hence, folks, that's why we're 2-8 the last 2 weeks, and we're 6-12-2 in the season. Yeah, it's pitiful. It is absolutely pitiful. All right, so looking ahead to today, though, as far as some of these other games, you have. I'm just looking down the list. Some of the games that are actually of noteworthy. We have Auburn and South Carolina. I told Rich this could be a sleeper game on Thursday, and it is not the game I'm going to add this week. We're taking out Cincinnati Tulsa just because that game is postponed due to COVID. But we're not adding Auburn South Carolina. Auburn's a 3.5-point favorite on the road. That was 3 earlier in the week when I was talking to Rich, and I told him that could be a sleeper where Auburn needs this, this basically, they need the it game. They need that game where they're like, all right, look, we have a good offense. We have a good quarterback. Gus Malzahn, the head coach, he needs to say, I did not make a mistake bringing in my friend Chad Morris to be the offensive coordinator. They barely edged that Arkansas last week, 30-28. They beat Kentucky earlier in the year, 29-13, but they got whacked by Georgia in between, only getting 6 points and losing 27-6. They're at South Carolina at noon today. They're 3.5-point favorites. I feel like this is the game. This is one of those prove-it games, and I feel like that is where Auburn can win. And then that could be a sleeper play to here today, minus 3.5 on the road. The fact that it moved to 3.5 now gives me a little bit, err on the side of caution, because Auburn could very well win this game by a field goal. And at least if it was at 3, you can get a push. So you have that extra factor. But I still think it has the possibility of a sleeper, but I'm staying away as of now. Kentucky at Tennessee, interesting one, but Tennessee's almost a full touchdown favorite. They're minus 6 at home against Kentucky. Kentucky, I don't know what is going on with Kentucky. And I get they beat Mississippi State last week, 24-2, and that's an even bigger question. What is going on with Mississippi State? They dominated LSU to open the season. The air raid offense is alive in the SEC now. Mike Leach can't. All of a sudden, his teams can't throw the football. 6 picks last week. But Kentucky, aside from that win, they have ground control, right? And don't get me wrong, Kentucky is one of our games. But you have to ask yourself, are they as good as advertised from last week? 24-2. They can put up. They can put up points. They lost by 1 to Ole Miss the previous week, 42-41. They have defensive players all over the field. They can really run the football. You get a hungry Tennessee team, though, this week. It's coming up soon. 12 noon kickoff. Tennessee ready to bounce back after that tough loss to Georgia last week. It's a big line. Tennessee -6. And if it might be spoiling it here a little bit, but Kentucky, they could capitalize off that victory. Again, it's just weird when you think about it. What's going on with them? Who are they for real? And this is head coach Mark Stoops, who said, we can, why not us when it comes to winning the SEC? Well, you already lost 2 games. You're not Alabama or Georgia. Heck, you're not even Florida. Are you? If you match them up against LSU, who would win that game? LSU's the defending national champions, and they seem to be going down a hole right now at 1-2. They can't stop a lick. They could score at will. It's like, where is Kentucky? Where is Kentucky? Now a win over Tennessee to get them to 2-2 doesn't necessarily make them a top 25 team. I know Tennessee's ranked 18th in the country, but what is Tennessee? That's my biggest question. Their leading rusher is a quarterback, Terry Wilson. Is he going to run this offense the entire year like this? Are they going to be able to capitalize on Wilson? Again, it's ball control, but he can throw the football. He can throw it a little bit. He's completing over 60% of his passes. He can also run. But they have 3 great runners. Him, and they have Christopher Rodriguez and Asim Rose, the other 2 running backs. They have a good rushing attack. Can they do that and capitalize against Tennessee today? That's pretty much how they beat Mississippi State last week. They had ball control. They played great defense. That's why they limited Mississippi State to 2 points last week. So that's the interesting noon game today, and we will pick it later in the show. Kentucky and Tennessee. It just hit me right now, folks, that what is Kentucky? Are they that good? Are they going to be in shootouts like they were against Ole Miss? Or are they just going to be a below-average football team when they played Auburn? They're a Jekyll and Hyde and add another name type of football team this year. Navy at East Carolina, it's another one of our games, so we'll dive into it in a little bit. That's at noon. That line has actually shifted now in favor of Navy. And this one, again, I mentioned it before. It's significant. Before we mentioned Alabama goes from -6 to -4.5. It's a 1.5. In this situation, Navy, they were +1. Now they're -2.5. That is fascinating. These lines have shifted. So it might be good where you get them earlier in the week. This is significant now. And again, because we affect these picks a little bit based on the line shifting from Wednesday when I do my segment with Rich to Saturday during the show, if these lines are significant enough, I do make a rule where we don't place those bets until Saturday. So we have to acknowledge it. So we will take a look at that as well. Texas State at South Alabama. South Alabama was -3. South Florida. Temple's a huge favorite at home today, -11. It's only their second game, but they're at -11 hosting South Florida. I'm staying away from that one. Liberty at 4-0. They're -3 on the road. They're a 3-point favorite on the road against Syracuse. Kansas, huge dog to West Virginia today. 22.5 on the road. Army's is over a touchdown. They're 7.5, -7.5 on the road against UT San Antonio. So again, some of these games I just don't like. I mentioned Notre Dame getting into the top 4 as well. They're 17 points. They're a 17-point favorite at home against Louisville. Louisville, since that primetime game against Miami where they lost and they got, I guess you can call it exposed, they have not been the same. They have not been the same whatsoever. They open up against Western Kentucky. They're ranked. They lose to Miami 47-34. They get edged by Pittsburgh the week after, and they got dominated by Georgia Tech last week. So Louisville is not the same. I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame absolutely blows them out today at 2:30. Duke, NC State. Here's your spoiler, folks. Duke, NC State. NC State's a 4.5-point favorite at home. We are making that our 5th game during the pick segment to replace the postponed Cincinnati-Tulsa. I'll reveal my pick, of course, in the next segment. Central Florida 2-1. They're no longer ranked, but they are still a top group of 5 team. But they have a big contest against Memphis. They're only 1-1 on the year. Central Florida -3 at home. That over-under is 73.5. Boy, man, Vegas really thinks that Dylan Gabriel is going to lead that Central Florida offense, and they're just going to score in droves. I wouldn't be surprised if we were looking at like a 45-35 type of game. That would hit the over there. Ole Miss, Arkansas, Lane Kiffin's squad. Ole Miss 2-point favorites on the road. Let's see what else we got here. Texas A&M, all fresh off that big upset victory. They're 5-point favorites at Mississippi State. And I'll tell you what, the way Mississippi State's been playing right now, you're either going to get this, you're going to get the same where they score, maybe 12 to 17 points, or this is the week where Mike Leach is like, hey, get your heads out of your butts, and we're going to go score 50 and upset Texas A&M. But that's I feel like that line should be bigger for Texas A&M. I know they're on the road, but I feel like Texas A&M should be more than a 5-point favorite. So, again, that's an interesting game to look at as well. That's at 4 o'clock today. What else we got? Virginia, they're a 2.5-point favorite on the road against Wake Forest. That is, that's interesting. Because Wake Forest, Virginia is showing a little something this year. I know they beat Duke. They beat Duke. They only lost to Clemson by 18. I say only 18 because Clemson beats everybody by at least 20 or 25. And then they lost to NC State by 17 last week. So, Virginia's weird where they can play a good game. I don't know if I like them as a favorite on the road, though. And I know Wake Forest hasn't been anything good this year. I thought they would do better against Clemson in the opening game. They got edged by NC State by 3 points, 45-42. But they dominated Campbell. They had a game against Notre Dame postponed. But Campbell, come on, 66-14. I don't know what Wake Forest is. I really don't. So, and the fact that Virginia is a road favorite by almost a field goal, I'm still surprised. They're both like hit or miss. The fact that Wake Forest's only victory over Campbell, gives me reason why Virginia should be the favorite on the road, but that is a weird game. It's just a weird game. North Carolina seems to be back, at least for now. They're ranked number 5 in the country. They're a 13.5-point favorite on the road against Florida State. Now, Florida State's no good this year. They're no good. But the way North Carolina played last week, they can't stop a lick either. Defense is going for a lot of these top teams, there's no defense. North Carolina can score. All right, they beat a lowly Syracuse team 31-6 to open up the year, but they didn't look that special. They barely beat Boston College 26-22, and they beat Virginia Tech last week 56-45 at home. Virginia Tech can put up points. But again, the fact that North Carolina is nearly a 2-touchdown favorite on the road against Florida State, and Florida State I don't like this year at all because they're just not good. But they showed a little something at Notre Dame last week, 42-26. I don't like that line at all. If you're going to take anybody today, I would take Florida State. They're a huge home dog. They're not good, but the fact that they had a new quarterback in last week, Jordan Travis. He threw for over 200 yards, had a touchdown and a pick, 13-24. It was all right. Average 8.5 yards per throw. So they're not good. They're not good. But the fact, are you really going to trust North Carolina to cover that by 2 touchdowns? Are they going to win by 2 touchdowns? That's a game where if I take it, I would take Florida State at home. They're a huge home dog. But again, another game I would want to stay away from. We talked about Georgia, Alabama ad nauseum, and our aforementioned Boston College and Virginia Tech. Hey, Boston College is doing things for us this year, folks. We had them the other week. That was our lone victory when they played North Carolina. Because, then again, Boston College plus 14 at home. Lost by 4. Nearly pulled the upset. So Boston College is our little darling this year for college football, at least on this show. I know what you're doing up there, Jeff Halfley. We can see what you're doing. Don't you worry. We see you up there. For me, Boston College 3-1. Are they a legit 3-1? Well, they're playing good defense. They beat up Duke. They barely beat Texas State. That's not a good win. Nearly pulled the upset against North Carolina the other week, and they edged out Pittsburgh. So it tells me they can score when they have to. They beat Pittsburgh 31-30 and knock them from the top 25. So for me, Boston College could be our little, they could be our savior this year, folks. And if that doesn't indicate who I'm going with in the upcoming segment, you're not listening. As far as the postponed games today, Cincinnati, Tulsa was postponed, as well as LSU, Florida, Vanderbilt, Missouri, the other SEC game that was postponed. I wouldn't touch Vanderbilt, Missouri with a 10-foot pole anyway. I mean, you're talking about bottom of the barrel SEC right now, and the fact that you saw Missouri knock off LSU, but that just goes to show you how bad LSU's defense is, and the fact that you probably can't trust LSU to cover anything this year, even if they score in droves. When they go up against the tippy-top competition of the SEC, we're talking about Missouri last week, right? Let's just say LSU was a 9-point dog, right, against Florida today. Let's just say. It was on the road. Let's say they're +9 on the road. LSU can score, man, and Florida doesn't have that good of a defense. LSU could score. Miles Brennan's looking good. Terrace Marshall, fantastic wide receiver. But, just moving forward, if you're going to look at LSU, are they going to be able to stop anybody? Bo Pelini's defense is absolute hot garbage right now. They are. They couldn't stop Mississippi State. They beat up Vanderbilt. Go figure, 41-7. But they gave up 45 points to Missouri. And the two losses gave up 45 and 44 points. The way Florida's offense operates, they could put up 60 on LSU. Can LSU keep up? Maybe. But let's just say Florida puts up 63 on LSU. You mean to tell me that LSU's going to put up at least 56 points on Florida? I don't think so. At a certain point, the cream of the crop rises. And Florida rises to the top over LSU. LSU's going to be tricky this year. I'm telling you, they are going to be tricky because they could score. They can absolutely score 34, 41, and 45 points. They could score. LSU can score. 41 points, excuse me. It's just a matter of can they stop, and can they stop anybody, and can they keep that scoring up against the big teams? Don't forget, folks, LSU still has to play Alabama. They got to play Auburn. They have to play Texas A&M. The Florida game was pushed to December 12th, so they still have to play Florida. I don't like LSU the way they've played. I don't like it. They are going to be someone's worst nightmare this year because they can't stop anybody, and they're going to cost you money at a certain point this year because they can't stop anybody. It's going to be a darn shame. All right, we're going to step aside and take a quick break as we ran down the games coming up today. I'll give you my 5 picks in the final segment. Don't go anywhere. It's College Football Pick'em right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Now back to College Football Pick'em with Nick Kosko, presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Welcome back to College Football Pick'em right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. This show is presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu, located inside the Attilas Gym in Egg Harbor Township. Final segment of the show. Nick's picks coming up. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at NickKosko59, NickKosko59. Follow the station as well at 1490 Sports Bet. All right, I teased it all show, but you look at it, the lines have shifted, and I'll tell you what, they've pretty much affected 4 of my 5 picks this week. Sorry, so, and I'm also counting Cincinnati and Tulsa being scrapped just because of obviously COVID. So that game not being played today. So we did replace it with Duke and NC State. So that does count with lines being shifted as we have to completely scrap one game. But the other games, these lines have moved, folks, and we have not seen this much movement in 1 week from any of ours, from any of these slates of picks that I've done over the last month. It's kind of crazy. The money is flying all over the place. So let's dive right into it. We're going to start with Kentucky and Tennessee. I mentioned this game before, and I asked the question: what is a Kentucky? Who is Kentucky? What is a Kentucky? Who are the Wildcats? Who is Mark Stoops? All these questions. Are they that good when they dominated Mississippi State last week, 24-2? Possibly. Defense forced 6 interceptions. They can run the ball at will. Terry Wilson is a dual-threat quarterback. They have 2 other running backs that can play ball control the entire game, and they can put up 24, 27 points and win a football game within the SEC. Here is my biggest question. Can they cover against Tennessee? Tennessee is reeling a little bit after a tough loss to Georgia last week. Tennessee's at home, though, -6 at home. But as I told Rich on Wednesday, if Kentucky can replicate the formula they used last week to beat a high-powered type of offense in Mississippi State, even though they've been down the past couple of weeks, they can even win this football game and pull the upset. Kentucky is not to be trifled with. Now, I don't think they're going to be, as I mentioned before, Mark Stoops saying before the year started, when he was asked, can they win the SEC, and he says, why not us? I mean, they're not going to go that far. I mean, come on, man. They are not going to be the SEC champions. I'd be shocked if they just, turned the whole college football world upside down and went on a run and won the conference. But the fact that they're +6 on the road today at noon, and the way they came off and played last week, I'm looking for consistency, and that's what I'm going for. So give me Kentucky +6 on the road at Tennessee. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled the upset as well. All right, next game, Navy at East Carolina. We initially had this one +1 for Navy on the road. It's now -2.5 for Navy on the road. East Carolina, not that good. Navy, and people want to raise their eyebrows at Navy just because they got absolutely destroyed by BYU to open the year, and so far Navy has barely beaten Tulane and Temple. Now again, Temple is a solid football program year in year out at this point, and the fact that Navy got demolished by Air Force, so Navy is one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams right now. But the fact that they were +1 to start, basically a pick-em, and I think they're going to win. The money is going towards Navy right now. East Carolina, I don't think is any good. Losing to Central Florida, I mean, they lost to Georgia State, folks. Georgia State by 15. I don't think East Carolina is any good. So Navy, the fact that the line shifted from +1 to -3.5, or -2.5, gives me hope that they could, even if they win close, they could still win by a field goal. So I'm going to stick with Navy, -2.5 on the road at East Carolina. Boston College at Virginia Tech. This went from +11.5 for Boston College to now +12, and this just gives me more reason to pick Boston College. Virginia Tech can score, but Boston College again, folks. This game is tonight at 8:00. Boston College is our savior this year. They have to be. I mean, if I had to pick one team to save me every week, it has to be Boston College. I mean, we had them +14 against North Carolina the other week, and I'm pretty sure we had them. I'm trying to think if we had them another week as well. I got to go back through my notes a little bit, but the fact that they won that game, or they didn't win the game, they covered the other week. We've only had them once this year, but I've been taking notice. The fact that they are being a thorn in everybody's side so far this season. I could have sworn, folks, that we had them, or maybe picked against them one week. Let's see. Nope, I guess not. Maybe I'm just imagining things. But the fact that they are now +12 on the road against Virginia Tech. Boston College can play defense, folks. They can. The way Jeff Hafley has sort of revived this program this year in his first year as head coach. Don't forget, this guy was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Hafley knows what he's doing. I didn't think they would have a 3-1 record to start the year. I don't care who they were playing. Phil Jurkovec, the quarterback, the Notre Dame transfer, he's playing well too. He has nearly 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. This guy is playing good, playing some good football, playing well. Boston College, man, I'm telling you, that's a huge line. +12 on the road against Virginia Tech. I like it. I really do. Over-under set at 62. The way Boston College has played defense this year, and the way they've just, in all these games they've battled, I mean, I would not be shocked if we hit the under here, folks. I mean, Virginia Tech, don't get me wrong, could score. They put up 45 in North Carolina last week. North Carolina's a top 5 team. Forget the fact that North Carolina doesn't have a good defense right now. Boston College plays good defense. I would not be surprised if this game goes under, but I do like Boston College to cover at plus 12. So that is game number 3. Game number 4, Duke, NC State. NC State is a 4.5-point favorite at home, and we took NC State last week. They were our lone winner, plus 9.5 at Virginia. NC State they have a good quarterback. Again, I'm all about the quarterbacks. If your quarterback play is solid, then I like it. Duke, 1 win this year. Didn't think they were going to be that good. Chase Bryce, the quarterback transfer from Clemson, has been very up and down this year. And NC State can score in their respective games so far. 42, 24, 30, 38 in their first 4 games to go 3-1. Devin Leary can put up points, and the fact that they're less than a touchdown favorite against a 1-4 Duke team gives me reason to pick the Wolfpack. Also, don't forget about Zonovan Knight. Yes, Zonovan, folks. Zonovan Knight, the running back. He's averaging 6.4 yards a pop on the ground. Look out, because I think NC State can really run the football all up and down Duke's defense. He's got 321 yards on the year, and Ricky Person Jr., 250 yards. He averages 4.5 yards a pop. And they've split the carries pretty evenly. Knight has 50. Person has 55. I mean, this will be a run-first ball control type of offense. And the fact that they're only a 4.5 point favorite at home, and it gives me reason to say, let's go Wolfpack. Get me back to closer to 500 on the season. All right, game number 5. We talked about it in the opening segment. Georgia at Alabama, number 3 at number 2. That line shifted from -6 to -4.5 for Alabama. I mentioned the big line shift. Not huge, but the fact that it goes from basically a touchdown to less than a touchdown means the money is going towards Georgia right now. And I got to say, I am going to stick with Alabama, folks. I had Alabama -6, so that should just give me more confidence to pick them -4.5, even if Saban is not on the sideline tonight, which at this point it does not seem likely that he will be. And if he's not out there, Steve Sarkisian is going to be making all the calls. He'll be in charge of getting the team fired up, making the halftime adjustments on offense and defense, and just overseeing the staff. But Saban's confident in him, and Saban was able to watch practice from Zoom leading up to the game. So it's not like he didn't have any less input on the game plan this week. And Saban actually said he could see more through Zooms. He could see everything, and then he just communicates to the coaches. So I'll tell you what, Saban's got an eye for these things, and whether he's on the sideline or not, I think Nick Saban is gonna make sure that his team is ready to go, and they're not going to give up 48 points once again like they did against Ole Miss last week. And the fact that it's Georgia, it's Kirby Smart, and again, I know it's not officially Saban versus an assistant of his, where he's 21-0 against lifetime. But I'll tell you what, the Crimson Tide, they're going to get up for this game. They're not going to go down losing this football game just because Saban's not on the sideline. I think Alabama's going to win outright. Obviously, they'll cover the 4.5, and it just gives me more reason to pick them. In the end, I don't think Georgia's offense is going to be able to keep up with Bama, and I think Georgia's defense is not going to be able to contain Bama's offense, for that matter, the entire football game. We're talking about maybe through the first half, maybe 3 quarters, Georgia can contain Alabama if they can, but eventually Mac Jones is going to take over. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, John Mechie are going to take over. Najee Harris is going to take over. That's the big key. If Georgia can slow down running back Najee Harris the entire game, then it will be tougher. But once Najee Harris gets loose and starts to get going, look out. I think Alabama is going to cover -4.5. All right, recap of the picks. Duke, NC State, -4.5. We have NC State -4.5. Kentucky at Tennessee. We have Kentucky +6. Navy at ECU. We have Navy -2.5. Boston College at Virginia Tech. We have Boston College +12. And then Georgia at Alabama. We have Alabama -4.5. All right, those are my picks this week. Those are my 5. That's my 5-pack. Nick's picks. We're 6-12-2. It'd be nice if we were 11-12-2 coming back next week, but I know 5-0 weeks are very rare, and they barely ever happen for me. So let's just try to go above 500. God forbid, folks, if we are 2-3 and we're 8-15-2 next week. I mean, Rich is still going to roast me, but let's try to go at least 3-2 this week. Let's get above 500. Let's get some wins back and get some money back as well. Those are my 5 picks. So, all right, place your bets, folks, because the college football slate is coming up soon at noon as well. Big thanks to my guys over at Harbor Jiu-Jitsu as the sponsor of the show. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter. Make sure to follow the station on Twitter at 1490 SportsBet. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Kosko 59, and follow my guys Rich Quinones and Ryan Rothstein on Twitter as well, at RichQonQ and at WiseRye on Twitter. That's going to do it for me. This has been College Football Pick'em on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, presented by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu. Enjoy the games today, folks.